Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. This is a very difficult story. We're going to look at one particular tale, but it's going to stand as a metaphor for many. Because something happened in this country, it happened all around the world, but it happened in this country in such a way that I don't think anyone will ever go to prison for it, and yet ultimately many children lost their lives because of decisions made by ministers and officials. Now, this, as I say, is a difficult story. I'm going to gloss over it as much as I can, simply because I cannot go into the details. YouTube just doesn't like this kind of thing. It says it's not friendly or whatever. So we will sort of glance over it. You'll get the basics of the story and you'll understand about these two particular people that have done this terrible thing. But it's really part of a much wider malaise that I really do want to address. So here goes, and it's a horrible story, so just be prepared. So, mother and partner are found guilty of ending the life of her son, 9, after repeatedly harming him physically and dunking him in cold baths as part of a sinister regime of punishment inflicted by this very inadequate couple during lockdown. Now, that is the story, really. It's the COVID lockdown. It's the things that happened during it. It's the lack of control. These children weren't going to school. Teachers weren't seeing it. There was no visits by social workers. People who were known to the authorities to be and represent a danger to children were not being monitored because the likes of Boris Johnson and that COVID team decided that children and their safety was not important. Alfie Steele, 9, was found passed away at home in Droitwich in Worcestershire in February 21. His mother, Carla Scott, and her partner, Dick Howell, have today been convicted. And before we go into too much of this, I do want to say straight up that I hope when these pair get to their respective prisons, the various inmates in those respective prisons will give them a very warm welcome. Maybe one that's very similar to the one that they gave this young lad. I wouldn't lose a moment's sleep over it. And I certainly wouldn't cry a single tear if tomorrow I heard that one or other of them was no longer part of the human race. A mother and her partner have been convicted of ending the life of her 9-year-old son in the bath after doing the most awful things to him for months. Carla Scott, 35, and her partner Dick Howell, 41, ended the life of little Alfie Steele after months of harrowing treatment during lockdown at his home in Droitwich. The defenceless schoolboy passed away after his lifeless body was pulled from a bath, having suffered more than 50 injuries at the hands of this evil pair in February 21. A court heard Alfie had been very badly treated and physically harmed all the way until he passed away, after being subjected to very cruel and sinister regime of punishment at the property in Vashon Drive. Now that means the people doing this are doing it to a child. They themselves are completely inadequate. They are empty. They are nothing. They are the lowest of the low. If all they've got in their lives is the ability to harm a child, it shows you exactly what these people are. And I hope that the men, especially in this prison, show this guy exactly what he deserves to get. The brutal discipline techniques included Alfie being struck repeatedly with belts and flip-flops, as well as being dunked in cold baths. He was made to stand outside at night and have water thrown over him. Shockingly, the physical and psychological abuse which led to the ending of his life was able to continue despite Alfie being under social services protection plan. And I'm done with this story. I've covered what I need to cover. This pair did the most awful things. I'm coming up now because I can't even be looking at it. Now I had to stop there because I was getting upset, but I have a feeling that where I'm going next is going to get me angry. Because that young lad and all the others that have gone, that are no longer here, they all died because this government, the officials, the scientists, all these people, they just wanted to do something. They wanted to be seen to do something, whether it was the right thing or not. They needed to stand on the world stage and say, hey, look, we're being great too. Look, we're being harsher than you. They're bounced into things by these guys. There was no evidence. In fact, it's come out since that a lot of the things that were proposed were entirely the wrong thing. And so they locked the country down. They took away all the safeguarding for vulnerable families. And these vulnerable families were locked in small flats, in small houses. There was no escape. Tempers fume, little things become big things. And people take it out on the vulnerable, on the weak, and on the small. And that usually means on the children. Every single member of the Conservative government, every single senior official involved with advising or decision making, every single one of the committee, the scientists and the advisors, they all need to stand trial. They all need to address the parents and families of every single child who lost their lives due to the lockdown, not due to COVID, but due to the fact that all the safeguarding has gone. The teachers that didn't see the children and the marks that were left. The social workers that couldn't visit. The courts that were due to hear cases that would have removed children to safety, but the courts were closed. This is what Boris Johnson and his team of virtue signalling, twat-like bastards have done, simply so they can look good in the eyes of other psychopathic world leaders, who none of which give the flyingest of fucks for the people that under whom they have authority. It was all about them looking like they were doing something. Well, they were. And we counted that price in the lives of children. And every single child needs to be accounted for. And every single member of that government, every official, every scientist, all of them, need to look the people of this country in the eye, admit their guilt, and then go to jail for 30 years for a crime against humanity. I normally end off in a completely different way, but I am angry and I'm just going to stop. So thank you for listening and goodbye.